Little Steve always dreamed of going to the mines, but the rules did not allow this, so he grew up and ended up in an office selling door handles while his soul was still pulling him into the mines. And at one point he decided to give up everything and repeat his experience, only this time nothing stopped him. He felt as if he had found two artifacts, which combined to create an upper world portal, where he finally felt alive, starting to change houses like gloves and recreating various works of art. But the terrifying nights with hordes of zombies began to bother him, and one day he heard it. A friendly howl. It was a wolf, which he had trained with the help of a femur, and named Dennis. The times were pleasant and carefree until one moment when he found these ruins, which he restored and opened a portal to a new world, where the scent of thirst was wafting, because the piglins living here wanted to get all the gold. But their leader, Malgosha, decided to detain the guests, at the same time taking away Steve's sphere of domination, which gave her control over the upper world. But since this world saved him, it's time for Steve to pay back in kind. At night, they escaped with Dennis and stole the sphere, but only the dog could get out of the lower world, who ran into the real world and hid the sphere under Steve's bed, thereby closing the portal for the piglins. Although they could not stay in the upper world for a minute anyway. Next, Steve's voice introduces us to a new character, Garrett Harrison, who stormed into the world of video games in the 80s, becoming the absolute champion in the Hang City Rampage game and managed to sign a six-figure contract with a fast food restaurant chain. But the golden days are over, and he received an eviction letter. To somehow save the situation, Garrett goes to a clothing auction, where the owner talks about a lot that contains precious games from the 70s. But when a man takes it for the last $900, there are only small trinkets inside the box, which lead the man to obvious despair. In addition, his car is also coming to an end. The girl Natalie and her brother Henry move to the city of Dallas after the death of their mother, and on the way they notice Garrett. They are met at the house by realtor Donna, who dreams of opening her own zoo with a welcome gift from the owner of the company, who hired Natalie as a PR manager. After successfully moving into the house, Natalie prepares a branded pizza from her mother for the guy and gives him a special perfume of velvet mischief. But on his way to school, the guy stumbles upon Garrett's video game store, and while the guy was looking at the assortment, the man managed to taste the kid's pizza, at the same time complimenting his perfume and offering a course on how to become cool for $50 an hour. Henry thinks it's not worth it and goes to school, where he personally meets with the principal Marlene. After all, Henry is the first student who joined them after the published rating at a school in their state. And during the drawing lesson, instead of still lifes, the guy drew his scientific sketches, which did not go unnoticed by the school bullies, who forced him to turn his idea into real life. But in an instant, he didn't notice that the guys had managed to cut his wires, so at the first launch, the skeleton hit the statue of the mascot of the chip factory, where Natalie got a job. And since the headmaster called his parents, the guy decided to offer Garrett to play the role of his uncle for $20, and he, of course, agrees in search of easy money. Dennis also arrives at the store, while Henry does not understand where he miscalculated in his calculations and decides to abandon his business, paying attention to the sphere and ignoring the instructions that they should not be combined and follow the portal that they will open, where there are many treasures. Natalie notices her brother's disappearance, and the realtor also informs her that it was her brother who caused the explosion at the factory, and after that, using a GPS tracker, they tell her that Henry is in an abandoned mine. Therefore, when the guys are next to the portal, Natalie keeps up with them. Only the portal unexpectedly sucks the entire team inside, forcing them to marvel at the new space and interact with new creatures. While one of the inhabitants of the upper world decides to find out what lies behind the strange thing. And since Malgosha finally found out about the return of the sphere, she gave the man an ultimatum. If he doesn't bring her back, they'll kill his dog, which is already heading after our main characters. Moreover, they feel the arrival of the first night and are attacked by skeleton gardeners. Garrett falls into a deep pit and accidentally finds a mine, while the chase for the main characters ends with one of the skeletons accidentally burning all his comrades. And Henry stupidly finds a new way to extract resources and manages to build at least some kind of protection, but forgets the sphere from the outside. Garrett got out of the mine and encountered the creeper for the first time, which made him fly a little, and having come to his senses, the man finally goes to his friends, but when he grabs the sphere, the skeleton breaks the shell with his arrow, causing the portal to the real world to close. Henry helps Garrett climb inside. But immediately another creeper explodes their fortress, and Steve appears at the top to help in the battle with zombies, who easily deals with rivals, and when dawn comes they completely burn to death. And then the men discuss a new plan. They need to go to the mansion to find a new shell called the Earth Crystal, but first they need to get to the village of Mid-Tower. While in the real world, a resident gets hit by a jeep when trying to cross the road. And the driver turns out to be the principal of the school, who notices that the victim's head is swollen, so he offers him a delicious dinner. Steve is already dedicating us to the history of the inhabitants, who are absolute pacifists, with a great desire to eat only bread. He also tells about a legendary pig named Technoblade. She symbolizes the most popular Minecraft blogger who died of cancer at the age of 23, so the creators of the game decided to leave a little Easter egg for him. Let's continue. Suddenly an iron golem appears in front of them, who keeps order here, and finally Steve leads them to his own diner where the chicken is baked right in the lava. But Garrett can no longer stand the hunger, and he rather starts tasting, and Malgosha comes to the conclusion that Steve betrayed them. So he calls his general and gives him a small flask with a potion that will not allow his army to turn into zombies, and orders to bring the sphere, and the lives of those who dare to interfere with him just interrupt. The girls find a card dealer, and the men go to Steve's warehouse, where he keeps his most beloved treasures and all kinds of armor. Garrett finds the Edge Gem, which can teleport the character wherever he wants. But not believing Steve, he accidentally uses him, even though he was the only one, and Steve almost died while fighting for him. But then he shows them a workbench on which he creates a new sword. But when Garrett takes over, he creates buckets for himself, which he will use on the battlefield. And Henry will be able to assemble a new type of weapon from the junk of the real world, which will be called the Thrower. While the men step aside, Garrett makes a condition that he will give the sphere only for the mountain of diamonds that he needs in real life to pay the debt. And so, when the girls had almost agreed to buy a map from the mute inhabitants, the village was suddenly attacked by a huge number of piglins, whom Steve was already ready to fight. But Garrett was sorry to give all the glory to him, so he decided to fight the monsters, but only knocked out our friendly Steve and, of course, could not overcome the general. Therefore, our team splits into two parts and rather runs away, promising to meet at the mansion. But while the guys were testing new elites that allowed them to fly, the piglins conceived an insidious plan to stop the round ones. But even here they managed to get out and escape. While the cute pandas were eating on the sidelines, their peace was interrupted by a loud fall from the sky. After which Steve told the story that their leader Malgosha dreamed of becoming a dancer, but her dancing was mistaken for a stupid joke, and since then she hated any creativity. So if she gets a sphere, she will simply destroy their world. But Gareth reminds him of diamonds, so Steve decides to walk straight through the mountain while Malgosha releases his pet, the Great Boar, who, according to her, and the subtitle operator, A. Semgin, corrector A. Igorov, but Garrett reminds him of diamonds. Therefore, Steve decides to go straight through the mountain, while Malgosha releases her pet, the Great Boar, who, on her orders, destroys the cute general. The girls followed through the forest, getting rid of monsters, but they accidentally found a wolf, which Dawn calmed down, and it turned out to be Steve's dog, who agreed to take them to him. Although he himself already gets into the mine, where Garrett checks all his traps on himself and randomly opens a secret vault with diamonds. But then Steve smells the underworld and realizes that Malgosha has released the Great Boar. Therefore, the company rather jumps into a trolley and rushes to the super shelter, but accidentally ends up on his creeper farm, where their main goal is to get to the rails with the red stone before the creature gets to them. And at the last moment before death, the trolley accelerates to breakneck speed, and the piglins explode along with a crowd of creepers. Henry accuses Garrett of selfishness, but the man, almost in tears, announces that he is a loser and bankrupt who failed to achieve anything, so diamonds were his only salvation. And realizing everything, Henry understands the man, calling him his friend. Once at the mansion, Steve tells them how to get inside and steal the Earth Crystal. Garrett and Steve distract the defenders while Henry tries to steal the loot unnoticed, but he will be noticed and the alarm will be raised. After which they will tie Steve up and arrange a fierce battle between Garrett and the zombie kid, who has already become a chicken rider and slaps real cabbage soup even to such a jock. Henry meanwhile manages to lock himself in a room with loot where he will find a new weapon and the same crystal, but he will not be able to resist the gaze of the unexpectedly appeared wanderer of the Edge. Therefore, under the influence of his magic, they will see an alternative to all their friends, but in the end, he will pull himself together and start fighting the monster, eventually getting the pearls of the Edge. And the men, with joint efforts, will still defeat the baby, and the whole company will escape from the mansion, but they will immediately meet Malgosha. She will steal the sphere, and the piglins will try to blow up the bridge. But when Henry and Steve get out, Garrett decides to detain the piggies and dies from an explosion that destroys a huge gust, and the guys crash. After which they find themselves in a brand new mushroom house that the girls managed to build in their absence for so long. Natalie finally embraces her brother, and Malgosha is already planning to steal the sun in the upper world so that the lower world can finally enter here and appropriate absolutely all the gold of this world. Steve has no plans to put up with this and is assembling his team to help him extract resources and implement a plan to build an army of golems, as well as create a unique high-speed golem. Only they didn't take into account one thing. Golems don't attack unless provoked. If only the stupid piglins knew about it, one of whom loaded an arrow right into the leader's forehead. And after that, the real battle began. Henry rather goes to the portal to steal the crystal, and Steve engages in battle with Malgosha. But at the last moment, the boar knocks Henry down from a great height, and the guy falls down, where Garrett picks him up, throwing the guy onto his new ship, with which he smashes the portal to pieces. The sunlight returns, and the sphere falls right under the feet of the boar, who is attacked by a high-speed golem and helps knock it right into Natalie's arms, while all the piglins in the area turn into zombies and burn alive. And Malgosha tried her best to drag Steve down with her grave, but it was too pathetic a sight. As a result, Steve could not part with his new friends and return to the real world, where Garrett managed to establish his business because they created a new gang with a whole team that won millions of hearts. And Steve began to do what he loved. Donna and Dennis are now organizing festive events with animals together. Natalie shares with people her skills to give a Z in her school, survival mode, self-defense. And Henry was finally able to refine his jetpack, becoming a real star of the school. In the credits, we notice a scene where a mute resident finally acquired a voice and fell in love with Marlene so much that he proposed to her. And at the very end, Steve returns to his old house, planning to pick up things from the attic, but Alex already lives in the house. If you didn't know, this is the second main character of the Minecraft game, which is as legendary as Steve himself. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the retelling, friends, help us achieve the goal of 1,000 subscribers. Thank you very much and have a nice day.